Hello, people. What's happening? What's going on? But first, coffee. Wait, where's my coffee? There it is. Delicious. Yeah. All right. Let's see what happened this week. I'm making a video right now for an amplifier. It's a little combo from Blackstar. This little guy. There it is. Nice amp. TV10A, it's called. Must be some solid state stuff going on. There's one 12AX7 and one 6L6 in there. And there's a drive circuit, so I don't know if it's a solid state drive or what the deal is. I don't know, or maybe they're doing some other magic. But anyway, it's a little combo. I think it retails for about $649, and it sounds really good. It's got 2 channels, foot switch that you can go between. Simple set of 4 controls with like a gain, a master, a tone control, and a reverb. Nice sounding reverb. It's not a spring. It must be digital of some sort, but it sounds really good. It's kind of a springy, holly mix of something. I don't know. And it's cool. Yeah. So video on that coming maybe tomorrow, if not Tuesday. Probably Tuesday. People ask me, when did I do that? It's like a nervous tick. I'm not nervous. I'm so scared. No. People ask me a lot, like about what's a good inexpensive, my first tube amp, or what's a good practice, for at home, and that's actually a really good option. I think if you want to have a tube, it sounds like a tube amp, even, there's one 12AX7, one 6L6. So maybe there's some IC stuff going on in there. I don't know. Who cares? It sounds really good. And it's got a nice, warm, but super clear, clean voice. It's supposed to be American sounding. I would say the drive is fairly British. It's in that camp. But anyway, this guy says, it's funny. Braxel says, don't Blackstar amps normally suck? I don't find that. I made a video for a combo that was like a 40 watt, 112, 2-channel thing. Sound pretty good. I plugged it in and got a good tone out of it pretty quick. I thought this is a good, inexpensive combo. I think maybe they've got a bad rap in some circles, or maybe people don't know what they sound like or something. I don't know. Or maybe they're earlier one. I don't know, because I don't have a lot of experience with them, to be honest. I've only played a few, But when I plugged them in and I turned them on, like this little guy, 649, plugged it in, turned it on, played a couple chords, and I was like, oh, that was my first impression. It's like, that sounds good. It sounds nice, So, I don't know. I mean, I think, some people think, expensive. Oh, he's got all these amps, or, that's all he uses or whatever. But I'm totally open to, the world of katanas and, little, I love my little, there's one that I actually have bought 2 of because I lost one somewhere. The Blackstar Fly 3, which is like $75, the little hotel room amp, and you'll see Phil X use them in videos and stuff in hotels, and the same amp. Saw Phil last night, by the way. More on that in a bit. But yeah, and it's I love that little thing. It's great. So I'm not that snobby. I think this little TV10 actually sounds really good. Quite to the contrary. I'm not blowing smoke. You'll hear in the video. It sounds, I've got a microphone in front of it for most of the video, but it's also got a DI out that maybe it's like a single IR or something, because it doesn't sound like an analog filtered recording out. It sounds like a proper, like it's not that far. You're going to hear it's not that far off from the microphone, because I was able to record I did the main solo in the song that I did with it, using both the DI out and the microphone on the amp at the same time, so I can directly show you, the 2 sounds and how they compare. They're not really that different. And I used a nice, M160 ribbon mic into my API mic pre. So, anyways, Todd says he got a Blackstar debut 50R and I love it. I think you're saying not and. It's a DI and I love it. And I love it. Got it. We understand. Ben Coombs is in the house. Who else is here? We've got Nick and Todd. There's Joe. He says, "Hey everyone." Hey man. Yeah. Okay. Just looking through the chat here a little bit. Let's talk about good sounding inexpensive stuff. Those Joyo Bandtamp things are killer sounding, not too expensive. I've heard some good stuff from Joyo too. Hotone. They make a nice effects processor that Dave Friedman will rave about. You'll hear him talking about it. And I've actually got one I'm supposed to do a little video of or something here. Maybe one of these days I can get around to that and do it. But Dave loves the interface on them, how simple they are, and they sound good. So I don't know. Yeah. I think techs don't like Blackstar. Are they hard to work on? I don't know. It can't be that much to this one. It's pretty simple. 4 knobs and, whatever works, man. So, oh yeah, here's the other one these are the other things that are really good that I have to say. The amped pedals, the amped 1, the amped 2, nice little foot switch, pedal channel switchers that have a built-in power amp with the speaker out. You can run them out to a cabinet or go direct, and they are good, 3J Music says, wasn't Blackstar that had issues with reliability? It's possible. I don't know about that, but it's quite possible that if a lot of you are saying it, so maybe that's true, and I'm ignorant to the fact that there was issues, but whatever, I don't know, anyways, what is the Equinox Express elevator? What is your songwriting process? There's no hard and fast rule. Generally speaking, I'm going to sit down with a guitar and see what comes to mind. So when I'm writing for most of the videos you guys hear me do here, I'm making videos about guitar pedals and amps and stuff. And so I'm trying to show off a sound. So I'll try and get influenced by the sound and show off that sound, if that makes sense. So if it's a delay, I'll try and do something where the delay is really a part of the sound, be it like maybe it's a reggae kind of dub sort of thing, or maybe it's a edge U2-y sounding thing, or maybe it's a really obvious, ambient something or other, where I'm really showing it off. So a lot of the stuff that I do here, I guess what I'm getting at is it's tone based. It starts off with a sound or a tone or a vibe, and then I write a part around that. If you're writing songs with other people, it could be, you might get, inspired by, a drum groove or by a bass riff or something, and then you try and play something complementary. So it really just depends. But the process is generally I start with a guitar in hand with a sound, be it an acoustic guitar, an electric guitar with a certain tone, combination of pedal or pedals and amp. And then I just kind of work around that. So, and start with that. And then I'll generally kind of get drums going pretty quick. So that's the next thing, because I like to play to a groove and get that going, and then see how that sort of inspires me to come up with more music on the guitar, more parts. Yeah. Spark 2 is great. I think that's that's from Joe. I think that's the what's it called? The Spark from I can't remember. God, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow today. What's the company? Positive Grid? Is that right? Don't they make the Spark? Or am I wrong? Sorry, let me take a bite of my granola and yogurt, because that's what I do here. I eat breakfast with you guys. Sorry. Sorry. Canadian. Sorry about that. I'm not that sorry. I gotta eat. And I get up early and I gotta scoop cat poop every morning now for 2 cats and clean up after those lunatics, and it's just an extra layer. Tell you. I'm sure some of you out there are like, oh, poor you. I've got 3 kids and 2 cats and a dog. Arthur says, I watched a guy doing a Blackstar demo at NAMM. He kept saying they sucked and they couldn't get his tone. Oh. Really? He was at NAMM doing that? That's so inappropriate. If you're going to work for a company, you can't, I don't know. You can't have a meltdown. So you think it was like Who was it? Tell us, Arthur. Spill the beans. Let's gossip. Let's get into it. That's what people want to see. Paul says, I'm in the midst of getting a Mac. I was wondering how much RAM do you recommend? 16 meg is, I mean, if you're just using iMovie and not doing too much stuff, it'll be okay. But it seems like these days, I mean, it's crazy how, I don't know what mine's got. Let me see. I have the baseline sort of Mac Studio. I didn't really do too much more than add a bigger hard drive. 64 gig mine has. I don't use a ton of soft synth and stuff, so every now and then I pull up, and I drum plugins and stuff I'll use, but it's generally when you're loading like a ton of those sort of peripheral programs and stuff that I find you need more RAM, I think is the case. Or like, you're doing a bunch of like orchestral sample stuff, and that's playing along with audio, and then it's like you need more RAM. A fast video card is or whatever they call them now, video chip. I don't know. I know very little about this stuff, but the video spec kind of that of your computer is important when it comes to like Final Cut Pro. And when you're streaming, when you've got like, let's say you're editing a multicam clip and you've got like a whole bunch of different 4K or 8K even these days clips all playing at the same time in little windows, and you're clicking between them to go when you're doing the edit, that's when you really need, the video, whatever they call it now. It used to be video card, but the chip or whatever has to be like really good that does that in the computer. But I don't know. I mean, I generally speaking, you can do a lot of work these days on almost any Mac, and it's, if it's basic, I mean, they're pretty powerful these days. So I just, all I can tell you is, I mean, I do well with editing on my computer, and it's a pretty baseline Mac Studio. So the Mac Studio, it's like the little cube one that's like, and then there's the mini, and I think even the kind of the upper grade mini is considered pretty damn good for doing this kind of stuff, audio and video. And then the Mac Studio is like the next one up. There's a couple different versions of that. I have, like I say, the cheaper one. I think it was $2,000. It works great. Works great. Go 32 gig if you can. Always go a little more. Let's see. What's Braxall doing? I've been putting up Music City acoustic panels, and Thanksgiving, I have not played my guitar for almost a week. It sucks. Yeah, but it'll be great at the end of the day. You'll have nice treated room. It'll sound good in there. Somebody's recommending, what's Arthur recommending? Recommending Quilter amps. They make a couple different versions. Small little amps that you can do things with. Jared James Nichols sounds great using Blackstar. I think Doug was using Blackstar too, like Aldrich. Man, it's like everything's pretty good these days. It's down to the player, isn't it? Really? I mean, there's so much good stuff out there. So down to the player and the feature set and all that stuff. I mean, that said, you're going to want a PT50. We've been playing around with stuff with different circuits and stuff. It's pretty fun. I actually have like a slightly modded PT100 here that I got for something that is really interesting because it's actually got a little less gain, and some people might not want that, but for what I'm doing with it, it's actually really cool. A little less gain on channel 2, and then I find it makes the boost really usable, because now I've almost got like a little more range on the amplifier or something like that. So it's just kind of fun. So I'm just playing around with things for the next gen, PT50. I guess what I mean is you can set the gain on 5 on channel 2, and it's a nice kind of 70s crunch, but not 80s at that level. And then you can hit the gain boost and actually get kind of an 80s thing going. And then you can go to channel 3 and like have the gain up on 7 or 8, and then also have the options of that or with the boost. I guess I'm finding it's just giving me a wider, like, actually sounds like sort of illogical or something, but it's like the less gain actually gives you more gain range because you can incorporate the boost more. Anyways, just got a ticket for the Classic Rock Show in Helsinki in February. Fantastic. Looking forward to it. That was a fun gig last year. I wonder if we're playing the same place. It was kind of a very wide venue that kind of like a wide theater that had maybe like a 1,200 seater or something, or 1,000 seater or something like that. It was cool though. I enjoyed Helsinki a lot. I had such a good meal there. I hope I can, actually figure out where I ate there last year, because I had a kind of a 3-course meal with like wine pairing, and it was stupid good. One of the best things I ate all last year. So try and find that place again, and it shouldn't be that tough. But I think we're doing 3 gigs in Finland this year, which is awesome. It was sold out last year and it went really well. And I think the promoter was like, okay, this works. And then they booked 3 instead of 1 this year in a couple different cities. So a few different cities, I should say. Yeah. What else have we got here? Let's see. Recently caught Colin Hay in Charlotte. I promise you'll love his show if you catch him. He's great, man. Yeah, I've had a lot of friends that have played with him over the years. My friend Charlie Paxton plays drums with him still, I think, and I wonder if he was with him. But yeah, he's a great singer. I saw him a little while ago at Apogee Studio in Santa Monica, and they were doing this little like sort of like a celebrating Peter Gabriel music thing, and he was one of the singers. And so I got to see Colin singing Peter Gabriel tunes, which was pretty cool. That's the only time I've seen him live, but it was great, and I've heard nothing but good things about him. The SLO30, did you like it for its abilities? I prefer the 100, to be honest. That's just my take. I don't know if it's it's just what I like. So for that thing, I don't know what it is, but if just being honest about it, I like the 100 the best. So it does the thing that you want it to do. Yes, it's loud and heavy and all that, but it sounds like what you want it to sound like, I find. Sorry, eating my yogurt. Someone needs to make rip-off copies of digital models like Hotone and call it Hortone. It'd be like an American company that knocks off gear that's made in China and sells it for like boutique prices. But it's all tube, point to point. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Ever tried a 70s Twin? That second EQ system it has is epic. The 180 watt Fender. No. The not popular ones, when they got cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. Anytime you see a master volume on a Fender, always I mean, who knows? Maybe you get a great sound, but not my thing. Not my thing. Let's see. Any tricks on phasing issues, says Darren. Running 3 amps. One is Leslie and using a radial AB switcher. It's hard to tell if I'm in phase. God, I think I'm still tired. When flicking the phase switches. Well, a Leslie is tough because a Leslie almost, if the speaker's rotating, then it's part of the thing is phase, I think, is that it's actually sort of kind of pulling you in and out. It's like a phaser. So, if first, so you can turn off I don't know that much about Leslie's because I've never had one, but I know some people will play them with you don't have to turn on the rotor, right? I don't think, right? So I would not do that. Just because of the mic thing on putting a Leslie into the equation just really throws things because mic position can affect phase, right? So if this is for live and you got the 3 amps miking a Leslie, like you got to mic it from the side, and that's going to be different than the close mic on a guitar amplifier that's stuck right in front of the speaker. The Leslie is going to be the 2 mics coming from the sides, and the speaker is you know, it's just like a kind of a weird, it's never going to be like totally in phase. But what you're listening for in general with two amplifiers, if you got two amplifiers that are sat right side by side, if they're in phase, when you move your head between the two speakers, you won't hear something very weird when they're at the exact same volume. First of all, they got to be about the same volume. So you got them at the same volume. You're going like this, and it'll just sound like the sound is powerful all the way through. If it's out of phase and you're moving your head like this, you'll hear the one amp you move in the middle, and it'll get all hollow and very strange sounding. It's once you hear it, it's impossible to mistake it. Moving your head around, you know, the bass just sucks out of the sound completely, and it gets very weird and notched sounding. So now when you bring the third thing into play, and it's a Leslie, it's like it's going to be a little swimmy anyway. But I would say that if you've got a microphone on the Leslie, let's just say one microphone because usually people use two, but you know, if there's one mic on the Leslie, and let's say that you're pulling it up on faders in a console and listening through monitors or through a PA system with some distance from the amps, if you pull up that fader and the sound just hollows out completely and gets very weird. You know, it's going to be kind of swimmy no matter what, but it shouldn't lose all the low end and all the fat when you know. So, if you want to mess with this stuff, I mean, you kind of just need to hear it so that you know what you're dealing with. So I just start with two amps and take the Leslie out of the equation, put them beside one another, set them at the same volume, play sitting right in the middle, and flip that phase switch on the radial, and you should hear the out of phase thing right away, whatever position is the weirdest. Yeah. And when you're miking, it's really important to have the mics at approximately, if not exactly, the same distance as well from the speakers on the two amplifiers. So there's a way, I've talked about it before. I don't know if I have the energy to relate exactly how to do it right now. I'm tired today. All right, I'll do it. Here's what you do. Okay, you've got two microphones. Let's say you want to get two microphones perfectly in phase on one amplifier. This is to measure mic distance and how two microphones, how far one should be from a cabinet and how far the other one should be from a cabinet. So let's say you got a U87 and a 57. You got them both up close on the speaker, approximately where you think they should be. What you're going to do is you're going to mic them both, and then you need to be able to hear in headphones. So you plug headphones into your mixer or whatever you're pulling up those faders, you know, like let's say you got, you know, a mixer with Mackie mixer or whatever with a couple mic pre's. And what you're going to do is put on the headphones, and you want to run a high gain kind of hissy signal through that amplifier, but do not play because you're going to go deaf. You want to turn it up quite loud in the headphones, but only hiss, no guitar. So you're just listening to through the headphones, right? And you're listening to that sound with both mic signals, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to knock one of them out of phase, one of those microphones. Okay, so hit the phase switch on the console on one of them. And now what you're going to do is you're going to move the microphones in front of the cabinet while you've got those headphones on. You're listening to the hiss coming out of the speaker through the headphones. You're going to move the microphone, one of them, back and forth. And what'll happen, because you've got one of them out of phase, electronic, like, you know, on the console, you've put it out of phase. You move those microphones, and when they're perfectly in phase, technically, the sound is going to kind of disappear, the hiss in the headphones. So you're listening for that, and then it'll turn into like that. Or if it's, it'll be like what an idiot I am. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, the sound is hollow out completely, and there'll almost be no sound when the microphones. Now that's because you've got one of them knocked out of phase, right? Now when you put it back in phase on the console, take that phase switch off, that's the position where, you know, the capsules are aligned and where the sound is getting to the two mics almost perfectly You can never have it absolutely perfect. It's like kind of maddening, but it's no big deal. But with two mics. Now, if you got two amplifiers, you can do the same thing. If they're set at about the same volume, and you know they're in phase, you've maybe done the A/B experiment on the A/B box, where you're flipping it in and out of phase. You can do the same thing. So you're micing two different amps, two microphones. We know that they're in phase. They're not out of phase with one another. You can move the mic on the and do the similar thing and get them totally in phase. And if you're recording, important project or record or whatever, then it's probably cool to do that. If you're just messing around or whatever, then it's probably not that big of a deal. And maybe the little bit of out of phase that you might get if they're not perfectly in phase is cool. It's always a caveat. Yeah. Okay. Ibar's recommending the Mesa 25 rectifier for a small amp. I like this. Let's make recommendations today. Last night I saw the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in Anaheim. My friend Angus playing guitar. And I'd never seen them before. It was very interesting. Great show, very high production value, really well executed. It's interesting. I didn't realize there's a whole story in the first half. I didn't know that was part of the thing. But anyways, there is. And fun for the whole family. But musicians, incredible. Some of the singers, oh my God. The singers are like really off the chart good. And the musicians were, like everybody up there is top-notch players. Saw Phil X there afterwards. That was nice to see him. Met Al Petrelli, who I remember from playing with Alice Cooper. But he's been doing this forever. I didn't realize this has been going on for 30 years, the TSO thing. So my old friend Joel Hoekstra, who I went to MI with 32 years ago. 32 years ago. Is it 32 years? Wait, is it more than that? Holy shit, it's way. Yeah, it's way more than that. Okay, I'm not even going to say how long, but yeah, that's insane. Anyways, we went to MI together when we were young. And he does the show on the East Coast. Great guitar player. Of course, Whitesnake, played with a bunch of people. Remember him, big, tall, lanky kid in MI. Now here we are all these years later. Still doing it. 6 strings. And the truth. Arthur says, how's Oscar in the Cone of Shame? I love Oscar. His name is actually Mochi, but I kind of wish his name was Oscar. That's a great name. Wish I'd thought of that. I wonder where you got Oscar from. You must know another pet named Oscar. That's a good name. Oscar. Oh, that's cute. I should have called him Oscar. Damn it. He's doing good. He's still got his cone on. I'm debating taking it off. Today is day 10 of his little recovery. He had an umbilical hernia, and he got his nuts chopped off. He got neutered. Poor little guy. God, I felt bad about that. I've never had to do that to an animal before. Like anytime, I've had animals in the past, wherever it was already done. So this is the first time I've ever taken an animal to the vet and had that done, and I did not feel good about it. I thought, this is not natural. And is that normal? I guess it is, right? You dudes out there taking your little guy to the vet that day and dropping him off, do you feel like you're betraying? Like I didn't feel good about it. I know it's something that you're supposed to do and that it's a good thing and all that, but it's like I didn't feel good about it. But on top of the neutering, he needed an umbilical hernia from birth, and so he needed that done. It was very expensive. Crazy. I saw something the other day that said dog people will go to the ends of the earth to get the exact dog breed, everything they want and everything, and cat people find their animal behind a trash can. And it's kind of true. That's like, he was in a box at the beach. That's how I found him. So he's had his privates removed, so it is what it is. But I don't know, dude. It was a little traumatic, but anyway, he's had a little cone on for 10 days now. This is day 10, so I think it's almost time to take it off. They recommend 10 to 14, and he's all right with it. So he hates it really, but He's getting by. I just don't want him to start going at the little umbilical hernia repair, like, because evidently they try and pull their stitches out and stuff like that. So I'm trying to push to the outside of the healing process. This is we're just talking about cats today. It's fantastic. Steve says for cats, check out the litter robot. Is it really that good? Because I've been thinking they're like $800 or something, right? But it's this crazy litter box that automatically rotates and cleans. And the daily litter routine is getting a little, like, with 2 of them, not into it. So yeah. Ben says start every morning cleaning the litter box while waiting for the kettle to boil. Oh man. Terror on 8 legs says my knees hurt. Yeah, that's right. They are crazy. Okay, let's talk some recording gear. Upgrading to UAD Apollo X6 recommended plugins aside from the PT100. Yeah, I really love the SSL bus compressor. Like, you got to have that. And I like the SSL channel strip as well for mixing. I would say you need some, but it probably comes with it, like some variety of 1176, some variety of LA2A. The B15, I love the Ampeg B15 for bass. If you're tracking any bass parts, it's my, not for like hard rock or whatever, but for anything like singer-songwriter, more mellow. It's just this beautiful, warm sounding, lovely thing. So that's great. Some of the new UA plugins, the Ruby and the Lion, are really terrific for the Dream. I'm sure is good too. I just haven't messed with it as much, but the plugins sound just like the pedals, so they're really nice for amp plugins. I would recommend a Waves plugin from my friend Greg Wells. It's called the Mix Centric, Greg Wells Mix Centric. I think it's only like $50, or maybe that's like the sale price that it goes on sale sometimes at. But really, really terrific sounding. It's a 1-knob plugin. You just put it on the mix bus and turn it up, and it kind of clarifies everything. It does a multi-band compression EQ thing, and it sounds fantastic. Yeah, so kind of like AI style, listening to your mix and just sort of perfecting things. What's it doing in there? But it's a nice one-stop shop for making a mix sound a little more polished quickly. I like a lot of the plugins, man. I used the API 2500 bus compressor on drum bus the other day. I thought that sounded great. Oh, there's that Apogee plugin that I really love. That's kind of a one-stop shop kind of thing too. It's called the Symphony Channel Strip. What a great plugin. It's got a compressor, simple EQ, little sort of harmonic drive knob that lets you add some distortion into the signal. It sounds killer on just about everything. Just put a little bit of that on drums or just about anything, and it just kind of livens things up. It's almost like a little World Exciter overdrive harmonic thing that just makes everything sound better. So there's some plugins that I would check out for sure. I know that's not all UA plugins, but there's a bunch there. The Chambers plugins, like the Capital Chambers or the Sound City Studio plugin, is great for room sounds. If you want to kind of make it sound like an amp's in a room, or a drum kit's in a room, or the whole band is in a room together. Really nice. Oh God, that's good. Last one, the API Vision channel strip. Really nice for, the input gain stage, like of, you're miking up a guitar amp or acoustic guitar or something, and you want a little maybe gating or compression or EQ or, a little low cut or whatever on the input. You can just kind of shape the sound with that. It's really good. Channel strip plugin. Do I play fingerstyle acoustic? Very little, but a little bit of Travis picking. Classical, not really. I mean, but I can do it. I can play with my fingers, simple stuff, like John Lennon. I'm no Tommy Emmanuel. Yeah. Let's see here. You saw the Beat Show. I did. I saw the Beat Show. It was awesome. Saw them last Tuesday. One of the best shows I've ever seen. Yeah, it was kind of musically transcendent. It was really music for music, and I thought they were just a great band that should actually record together, like making new music. Like, this is great celebrating these songs from the past, but they sounded really vital and like they were having fun playing together. So it's like maybe they should record, you know, and do another tour with some new tunes. I thought it was killer. Yeah. Somebody was mentioning Glenn Fricker. I know his wife, she was having some medical issues, and somebody here, Braxel, says I've been playing Glenn's vids. Glenn Fricker, you know, he does the you know, crazy reviews where he's you know, very animated and sometimes disses things a lot and stuff like that. But he's a very, very sweet guy. He's a nice guy. When you meet him in person, he's actually kind of quiet, because I know in his videos he's got that personality, you know. But when you hang with him, he's a thoughtful, kind of quiet guy. Not quiet, but you know, he's just a nice Canadian dude. And I saw that his wife, you know, is having some medical issues right now, and you know, he's spending a lot of time with her, as he should, of course, and sort of can't put time into YouTube right now. So he asked folks to play his videos just because of the algorithm and stuff like that. And you know, if you that's how YouTube works. It's all algorithm based, and if you play his videos, it helps generate some income, but also just keeps his channel out there and stuff. And so you know, just putting that out there, you know, if you know Glenn and stuff like that, maybe go pop on a playlist or something like that and watch his videos for fun, or just let them play in the background. Yeah, just to help her out and him. And I know he's going through some stuff, so everybody needs some help sometimes, right? Yeah, absolutely. Who's making good and reliable tubes these days? Well, Shugwang is back as far as 12AX7s. So they are my favorite current production 12X7. They just sound they make the sound I like to hear. JJ makes some good stuff too. Never was really a fan of the ECC 83. I always found it dark, kind of not like, just sort of blah. But the E83CC, different tube, is a nice sounding tube. And their long plate is a nice sounding tube. The JJ long plate 12X7. So like those. PS Vane is actually evidently, I know Friedman has been using their EL34s in amps, and he told me a while ago that he hadn't seen any failures in quite a few, I mean, hundreds of quads of them. So maybe they have now, I don't know, but I know they screen them when they come in and stuff, but then they send them out in amps, and he said that they've been really good and reliable. So it's good to hear. So yeah, I haven't heard the best things about like the EHEL34s and stuff lately. I heard there was sort of some issues. JJ though, like their 34 seems to be, I haven't heard anybody complaining about them. I know like over the years there's been like occasionally quads and things where, or sorry, like periods of time where it seemed like, oh, why are all our JJs failing now, you know? And there was issues, but I haven't heard that for a while. It seems like they're consistently pretty good right now. So I would say the new Shugwang new production 12AX7s, PS Vane EL34s. I like the TAD PS Vane EL34s too. However, these the red base ones, you know, got those still in that Marshall that's way up there. And you know, I like the way they sound. So there's some stuff. Lawrence's video card is now called GPU. The GPU. That's right. And also 32 gigs is better. Yeah, go 32. Go 32. There's a little super chat there. Thanks for the super chat. Helps keep things going around here and keep me in coffee. Oh, and I already kind of answered that question. So good and reliable. Yeah, I would say JJ EL34s, PS Vane EL34s, and 6L6s and power tubes. The JJ6L6, sorry, the JJ6V6 is what we've used forever in the PT15s, and it's known to be a great 6V6, super robust, almost sounding more like a 6L6. Yeah, so there's some tube recommendations. There's a new M4 Mac Mini, says Earl. Killer platform for Logic. Base configuration comes with 16 gig RAM for $599. Wow, that's so cheap. That's incredible. See, Could have waited and gotten that instead of my M2 for $2,000. But who cares? Because I'm making music on it and videos, and it works just fine. That's what I say. Okay. What else have we got here? The new M4 chips, as Ben Tom, is insanely good at multi-core processing. Sweet. 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 Yeah. Okay. Getting a lot more recommendations for Glenn's stuff now. What a bizarre thing YouTube is. Crazy algorithm BS. Yeah. Well, I guess it's working. These people must be streaming it and it's putting it out there, you know, and then more people are watching it. So that's good. You know, good for him, good for his channel stuff. He needs the help. So use the AI and the computers to help people, for God's sakes. Okay. Here's some more advice here. Byron saying my laptop pegs 16 gig when I render videos with Vegas Pro 22, planning to upgrade to at least 32 gigs. So there you go. Little advice there that more RAM is better. Do you think there's pros and cons to drive the front of a Marshall versus using a hot mod in the pre? Well, when you use the hot mod, a couple different cons. I mean, because it's a cool sound for sure. This is a little like thing that replaces V2 and adds an extra gain stage in a Marshall. You can use it in a JCM 800 or in a Plexi style. If you use it in a Plexi style, one of the problems is you're gonna just get a lot of volume. It's gonna up the gain a lot, and it's gonna be less clean on tap. So you probably don't care because you're putting it in there for gain, but you'll just notice that it'll make it a little more just gainy, less play on the volume knob of the guitar, that kind of thing, and loud. You know, it's kind of loud right out of the gate on the volume. Not that they aren't already, but even more so because you're adding a gain stage, so you're pumping up the gain. There's no master, right? Now in a JCM 800, that sort of mitigates that with the master volume, takes care of that problem in a 2203, 2204 style circuit. And what, like any mod, you're adding a gain stage, so yeah, it's just not going to be as much clean on tap. But you once again probably don't care about that if you're adding gain distortion. Pedal in front is obviously, you know, always an option. There's a whole bunch of them out there. That obviously you can go the tube screamer route, the Klon route, the you know, SD1 route. Some sound more like a part of the amp than others, and then, but maybe you don't want it. Maybe you want that combined, that tube screamer tightening thing. You know, they all do a slightly different thing. I would say that the hot mod thing feels like a mod. It feels more like a part of the integrated part of the amp, whereas a pedal generally doesn't, you know. But one pedal to always try if you want that kind of modded sound, but you don't necessarily want distortion, but you want like more. The Cocoa Boost from Sir. It's a sleeper, man. And I think not enough people have gotten turned on to it because it actually like does this killer boost the front end thing sounding integrated to the amplifier. It's basically when I'm talking about in the mid boost mode mainly. You put in the mid boost mode and you boost either the low mids or the high mids, and you stick it in front of an amp and you're just kicking that kind of notched bit of mid-range sound in the front of an amp. It's kind of like what you do when you add a tube gain stage to the front of an amp. Because you lop off the highs and the lows generally of that tube when you're adding, like a Jose mod, and you kind of mid-range into the front end. And that's what gives you that sound. And it's sort of, to me, sounds, you're hitting the front end, you're distorting the first tube stage of the amp, and you're doing it with this mid-rangey sound, but not really adding distortion there. You're just pushing, and the first tube's doing all the work as far as the overdrive goes, and that sounds really good to me. So anyway, just some different ways to go at it. Yeah. Here's another advocate for more RAM. Go 32 says James Dean, software won't even seem to install and run like this. Yeah, it's weird. It's like the more capabilities and stuff that, you know, computers are able, to do all this crazy stuff these days, it's like that you need the faster processors and the more RAM, I guess. I've always gone more than 16 for at least the last 15 years. 16 seems low to me. So yeah, go for more. What's my desert island gear? Well, I can't choose my signature stuff. I was gonna say my signature stuff. uh I mean, man, I can't have my signature stuff. Okay. Well, I would probably just have. Does this desert island have electricity? Because if it doesn't, then I just take my D28 and be done with it. If it does, I would say just my old Strat maybe, and nice little amp like a deluxe reverb, and that's it, and a tuner. Let's be done with it. Plug in the amp and noodle around, because I'm basically going to be at the beach all day if I'm at the desert island and don't have anything to do, and I got to go hunt for food and stuff too, right? So I got a lot going on. I don't got a lot of time to play guitar, even though I've got electricity somehow. I'm trying to think this through. Anyways, there's a super chat up there. I got to grab in a second. Thanks for that. I think there's two actually I got to get to. I'm gonna go a little quicker here through the chat. Any tips on gain staging when there is so? What does that mean, Darren? When there is so my, I don't know. The SLO 100, I believe, has a very specific transformer. Yeah, there's something about that circuit with. Like the 100. There is a thing to it. Like when that's the sound you want, is something about the big, amp that it just does its thing. Otherwise, everybody would be playing hot rod 50s and stuff, right? It's basically like a similar front end, channel, but they never sounded quite the same. So, yeah. What else? This is interesting. Been listening to Deer Rouge lately. Great Canadian band from Red Deer, Alberta. Interesting. Band from Red Deer. I want to listen to that. What do they sound like? Tell us about them. The Synergy SLO sounds very close to the 100 if you use a Marshall. Do you mean like a SLO 100? If you use a Marshall power amp or something? Interesting. I found it still sounded a little different to me using the Synergy power amp than my real SLO. But it wasn't like it was a bad sound. It's a good sound, but it's just a slightly different sound. Basil says his super chat failed to come through. Sorry about that. Yeah, ask that question again, and I'll try and just ask it or answer it, or you know what I mean. Sorry, I shouldn't read and talk at the same time. Never works out. What are the sound differences between Alnico and ceramic pickups? Yes, you could. Well, okay, there are differences, and yes, I think most people. I mean, I heard it when I was a kid. Ceramics always sounded like wider to me, like big bass, big treble, kind of full bandwidth distortion. Because generally, ceramic magnet wasn't a lot of ceramic magnet like low output pickups. It was always like a hot kind of super distortion kind of thing or something. So I guess that's part of it too. Nobody was making like a PAF, but with a ceramic magnet. Not so much. You could get a 9K Mighty Mite, which was like they were sort of super distortion clones, the hotter one, but then they made a lower wind one. Al Estrada thinks Eddie Van Halen used that pickup, the 9K one. I don't know. I think he used the hotter one, but Al thinks he used the other one. Maybe he used both. Who knows? But the difference I hear is with Alnico, and there's all different kinds of Alnico too. There's 2, there's 4, there's 5. Alnico 5 has bass, treble, and it's generally kind of crunchy and full bass. A ceramic magnet pickup, by comparison to me, is big and flat sounding with even a wider, like more presence and more big subbier lows. It's kind of like the sound of a super distortion. It's the big wallop into the front end of the amp. Alnico 5 a little more like little more condensed, a little more vintage sounding kind of, but there's still a more aggressive upper treble and bass. Alnico 4 is super balanced sounding, bass, mids, treble, kind of. That's the Thornbucker Plus sound. And then, or Bare Knuckle Mule, or various other pickups. Alnico 2, softer bass, rolled off top end, kind of a spongy in the lows, but in kind of a cool way. So it's got kind of a warmth to it, mid-range, like a little more mid-range, a little spongier bass, a little rolled off top end. Can sound great into high gain, but maybe not for metal, maybe more for like rock. Slash always used Alnico 2 pickups. Eddie Van Halen used Alnico 2 pickups, like the custom or the later on, just kind of, that was more his thing, that Alnico 2 thing. So anyways, yeah. Let's see what else we've got here. Chris says he's got a 10-year-old Soldano Hot Rod 50. I don't think I'm missing much not having a SLO. Even Mike didn't think I needed an SLO. That said, sometimes I think I should have got an SLO just because. Yeah, I guess you'd have to directly AB, and then you'd know. Yeah. Okay. Looking through the chat here. Let's see. Reading through all the comments. You guys are talking about phase. More about phase. Ben Tom says he likes twin reverbs into 412s. You go. Close back 412s. 360 watt per cabinet, so they won't blow. Pretty cool. Let's see here. Russell says, sorry I'm late to the party. It may have already been discussed. Has anyone ever used an AMT preamp pedal? I know the ones you mean. Any good? I like to have having the option of having an SLO 100 on tap. AMT, didn't James Brown of PV fame design those, I think? And they had a great reputation. Let's see here. AMT preamp pedal. Oh no, maybe it's a different pedal. Maybe that's Amp Tweaker, AMT Electronics. Okay, no, sorry, I'm getting them mixed up. Man, there's so much gear out there. It's hard to stay on top of everything, isn't it? So let's see, what do we got here? Guitar, wow, look at that thing. The AMT SS1 or SS11A classic guitar preamp. That thing is like full blowing. Looks like it's probably got a tube in it of some sort. Built on the power of two 12AX7 tubes. Man, that is a full-on preamp, isn't it? Like, I'm just looking, there's a full crazy two EQs, like separate EQs for two different channels. I guess kind of like not unlike this sounds like it came out around the 2010s, it says here on this reverb listing. Not unlike a Friedman of its day. Friedman, the IR pedals. Interesting. Yeah. Where's the Jackson? It's no longer on the wall. It's back there somewhere. I had to move it because I needed the slot for something. No, it's still hanging there. It's just I moved it one over so you can't see it. It's behind the amp cabinet there. Sorry about that. Yeah. Earl says the key to getting breakup on the twins was to remove two of the 6L6 tubes, turn it into a 50 watt. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Jeff Scott Soto. I saw him last night. That's right. He was singing with Trans-Siberian Orchestra. He's going to do some gigs fronting the revived Saigon Kick. That's interesting. I didn't know there was a revived Saigon Kick. Isn't Jason Beeler from Saigon Kick. He was the singer, right? And he's doing that band now, which is really good. I'm not going to remember the name of them right now, but it's the Something or Other Orchestra, and it's fantastic. I like their music. Just heard it a couple times and was like, whoa, that sounds really good. Kind of proggy. Good hard rock. Let's see what else we got here. Oh yeah, Alex Skolnick did Trans-Siberian. I heard that he did it the last night. I found that out. I had no idea. That's really interesting. Joel Hoekstra is a monster. He is a monster. He's a great big guy that was just, he's like a Viking that was made to play the guitar, you know? And nice cat from back in the day. It was like, he was New York. I was from Canada. We're the two guys, to be honest, that I remember. I mean, I remember a couple other guys from my class at MI. But I remember there must be other people that I'm just unaware of, but I don't know of anybody else. Like, I haven't kept track on anybody else from my graduating year at MI that's still in the music business. You know, there was another dude that was working for named Joe that was working for Mace for a long time. He's a really nice guy, cool cat, and he played in bands and stuff too. But I haven't seen him for years. Joel obviously went on to, you know, crazy career, do really well. And he and I are the only ones that I know that are kind of like out there doing stuff. There's probably other people from the year, but I remember I have a clear-cut memory of being in P100, which is the main performance hall at MI during orientation week, and there was like 700 of us all in the hall. And I remember that one of the instructors saying, statistically, only like 2% or 4% of you or whatever will actually have a career in the music business beyond a certain, like, you know, 10 years from now or something like that, whatever it was. And I was like, screw that. That's going to be me. And I did it. Damn it. I'm still here. So anyways, not that that's, you know, it's neither here nor there, but yeah, I remember that. And so Joel, he's the one I remember from my class that's done well, career in the music business, you know. And then I guess I'm chugging along. Okay, let's see here. Freddie says, hey man, sorry it's been a while since I've been able to catch a Sunday Live. Well, I'm glad you're here now. Been meaning to ask about the Friedman BE Mini. Oh, they're fun, you know. It's a fun little, I think Dave, you know, even his take on it is that people take them too seriously. You know, it's supposed to be a fun little conversation piece that's like it's sort of like a BE pedal with a power amp built into a, you know, a little head shell. It's like kind of that circuit, you know, like people that run, you know, their pedals into power amps and then into cabinets. It's kind of like that, basically. So, but I was able to get some tones out of it, you know. Yep. Have you produced any music with an orchestra? Not really. Let me see. I mean, here's the one funny thing that I did that isn't an orchestra, but it's something similar, sort of. I did a session with this group called Pan Rocks, which is about 50 steel drum players, and I did 3 Rush songs. So it's myself and Mike Portnoy and Philip, bass player with Steve Vai, and we played the core guitar, bass, drums stuff, and we did YYZ, Spirit of Radio, and Tom Sawyer. I think, was that the third song? I think it was Tom Sawyer. Anyway, 3 Rush tunes: YYZ, Spirit of Radio, I think Tom Sawyer. Anyway, you can see it on YouTube if you search for my name and Pan Rocks. But it's amazing. They're like a steel drum band that plays rock songs, and they you know, do this every year or so. They get together and they cover some tunes and stuff. So I did do that, but that's not an orchestra. But that's the first thing that came to mind, so that's why I brought it up. All right. Is there any way to use it just as a preamp into another power amp? I love the sound. Oh, you're talking about the BE. Yeah, I think you can take the effects send into a power amp. It's got an effect loop on it, so you can do that. Just run it out into power amp. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. You should wear a cone and try it. To see how I do for 10 days. Oh, dude, I am the most empathetic person, believe me. And I'm really empathetic towards animals. And when I see him running around with his little cone on every day, it breaks my friggin' heart. I want to take it off, but I don't want him to rip his stitches out because he's crazy. He's an orange cat and he's a kitten with crazy kitten energy. And I just know that he'll murder himself. So I don't want that, you know? So I'm going to leave the, yeah. I'll leave it on his head. For another few days. I own nothing that poops in the house. Well, you poop in the house, so, you know, there you go. Ben Tom says he's allergic to cats. Okay. Do you rotate or buy and get rid of your guitars or amps very often? I don't hear you talk about getting vintage gear. I have a few pieces of, I've got my old telly that is sitting right there. Where is it? It's over there. Can you see it? No, because this thing is covering it up. If I take this off, you'll be able to see it. Anyway, I don't know how to do that right now, so I'm not going to do it. Here, there we go. There, that guitar that you can still not see. It's a 66. Yeah. And I got an old 335 that you guys have seen in my videos, and I got an old Strat. So those are my old guitars. And then I got an old Marshall and an old Fender. I've got an old Vox here that's been on loan for years. So, a few vintage guitars and then a whole lot of new stuff, basically. Yeah. So, and I love vintage guitars, but they're just kind of stupid expensive now. And I sort of just want to save my money and not. Guitars is fun, but, I sort of feel better about putting my dough in the market or something these days, just leaving it there. You know what I mean? Like, guitars is great, but I've got new guitars. They work great. I've got my few vintage guitars. They play great. They do what they sound good. I don't know. Just kind of keeping it simple. I know it's not the fun, sort of boring, but not that I wouldn't. I mean, I've come close in the last few years. There was a 54 or 55 all gold Les Paul that I was considering last year, the spring of last year. It's in Atlanta. Really cool guitar. And then I always kind of think about it for a couple of days and I'm like, what am I going to do with that thing? Like, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? It's just sort of like, am I going to take it on the road? No, probably not. So it'll sit in here and I'll use it sometimes and stuff. But it's a lot to have tied up somewhere. I don't know. They're so expensive. When they weren't so expensive, it was like, I bought a 54 Les Paul for $2,000. $2,000. Imagine, in 1994 or so, or 93. And it was a refin top, but it looked great. It was perfect. It was already checking and, it was done well. It was supposedly refinned in the 70s, is what the dealer told me. So it was already getting green around the edge and stuff. Proper lacquer. It was like the right gold. It looked great, whoever did it. And it had a headstock repair. So it had a busted headstock and fixed. So that made it $2,000. 54. That guitar would now be like $35,000 probably. Something stupid, even with those issues. And it's like, maybe if it was 10, I would go like, yeah, that's pretty cool. If it was 12 or 15, I would go like, if like somebody offered it to me, that same guitar now, and it was like 15, I loved it. I shouldn't have sold it. I've regretted it ever since. Maybe I would, but like for what it would be, when I see conversions now, like, okay, so this is weird, but like, let's talk about this for a second. A conversion Les Paul, so which means like an early 50s gold top, can be from 52 to 56 that somebody's bursted and either that or just put humbuckers in, right? So they've converted it to kind of 57 spec. I like P90s. I mean, the whole P90, 52 to 56 Les Pauls is cool, you know? So when we get into 57 Les Pauls, they get so much more expensive, right? So a minty, like, or pretty close 54 Les Paul these days is like 50 grand. If you take that same guitar and refin it burst, and it's like a good refin, and then you route it, so you're radically modifying the guitar, and you put humbuckers in it, that same guitar as a conversion is like I've seen them for like 40 or 35. So you've seriously modified the guitar, and it's like $35,000, but it's so if that guitar was all beat up and maybe had switched out pickups and stuff like that, it wouldn't be 50 anymore if it was a 54, right? If let's say the bridge had been changed and the pickups were swapped and the tuners were swapped and maybe it wasn't in great shape or whatever, maybe it's like 40 or 35. Now you do a conversion to it, which means you route it and you refin it and it's still 35. It doesn't make sense to me. I think a lot about this because the price of like to me, a conversion should be like 20 or 25. And I've seen them for that. But sometimes you see stores and dealers and what they're charging is just like bonkers. Maybe I'm a little jaded too, because like recently in Tokyo, some of the prices there in vintage guitar stores were like bonkers. They were so high compared to what they were back in 2010. Now I know the yen's gone through the floor compared to, the US dollar is too strong right now. I mean, the yen is like, that's like worldwide. It's great if you're traveling to Japan and you want to like just buy food and stuff. It's awesome, but they've jacked up their prices so much to compensate because they're thinking internationally, and they're trying to, I think, sort of take advantage of like, maybe a US buyer will buy this guitar and then, you know what I mean? We'll bring all these dollars in and then those dollars are worth a lot in Japan. So anyways, it's all kind of wacky now. And I'm just kind of out of the game a little bit. I feel like 'cause I can't afford like that, like, or I don't want to, like, I don't know. I could, but I've got friends that are in it and they buy and sell guitars like crazy. My friend James at this Classic Rock show, he's major vintage guitar bug. He's got hardcore and he buys and like he's had multiple 50s Les Pauls, old Strats and all kinds of guitars that he's buying and selling all the time and stuff. But I guess he's in it. And it's like an investment. It's almost like stock trading. Like you put a certain amount of money in the market. So the version of that is you buy a couple guitars and then you start trading and selling and buying and trading and selling and buying and trade up and try different things. He's constantly moving stuff around. I mean, it's like every 2 months, he's like, oh, I got rid of that one. I got this one. A couple months goes by. Oh, I got rid of that one. I got this one, and I think he really enjoys it, and it's like, I just kind of gives me anxiety. I don't know. Yeah. Cause I sort of like, once I get one, I don't want to sell it. If I get it, it's probably because I loved the tone and I don't buy it as a investment or something as much as I do. Like, I really want this because the sound is like nothing else. And then I'm going to want to keep it. So the idea of letting it go to me, I don't know. Just anyway, that's that story. Have you ever put together a kit guitar? Dude, that was our whole 80s thing. I mean, it was like in the 80s, we used to, I had a local auto body shop paint. I never painted it myself, but I had a guitar bandsaw out picked a wood blank and stuff. And then I bought a kit neck, made a super strat with a hockey stick headstock and all that stuff. I did that in the 80s. And I used to part out my guitars and change things on them. And it was the Eddie Van Halen era of like anything goes. And so it's constantly changing pickups and stuff. Maybe some of you saw Rhett Shull's video this week on how he was like shocked at how many people were like dissing him for changing pickups on an old R9. It's like, you never should have bought that guitar. It wasn't the right R9 and stuff like that. And it's like he basically just bought a guitar and then he changed the electronics and everybody was dissing him on that. And I'm like, that's what I mean. It's interesting because too, it was a 99 R9. It's not like it was a newer one. It was, probably had 57 classics in it or something back then. And so we switched out the pickups for something, and it's like, we used to do that like every Gibson that I got in the early 2000s, late 90s, early 2000s, mid 2000s. I don't think I left the pickups in any of them except for my Dave Grohl has originals. Oh, and I have a Les Paul traditional here that has 57 Classics. That's what came in it, and I kind of like those pickups. So I always wanted a guitar like that, and so. But like my Les Paul Custom, my black one has had so many different sets of pickups in it. My R9 has had 3 or 4 different sets. Finally has Thornbuckers in it now. Settled on that. It's like people used to buy these guitars in. I mean, plenty you here remember 2005 or whatever. You'd buy an R9. The burst buckers or whatever that were seen as okay, but there was like this burgeoning sort of boutique pickup trend with Tim Buckers and like different pickups coming out where you'd get on a waiting list for some guy that was winding in his garage, right? And you'd get the pickups like 2 years later and be super excited to tear those burst buckers out of your R9 and put in the Tim Buckers and see what it sounded like. And the RS wiring kits and stuff with upgraded pots and caps and all this kind of stuff. This is what we did, so it's like 80s, 90s, 2000s. It was not uncommon to mod your guitars and put together, like, as you say, kit guitars. That was like that was a whole thing in the 80s that I definitely did. So okay, what else we got here? Let's see. What do I think is the difference between the driven front of a Marshall versus using a hot mod in the I did that already. That question. Keep in mind too with the hot mod, it's kind of it's after the first gain stage, so it's kind of inserting a gain stage before the cathode follower. I think not after it. I think before it. So it's kind of sticking an extra gain stage in a place that's interesting. It's not exactly sounding like a Jose mod or something. It does a different thing because it puts the gain stage in a different place in the amplifier, but it sounds good. It's cool. It's just kind of a big driven saturated sound. It sounds a little less like than like a Jose sort of has that snarly rock mid-range. I don't know. And then this sounds a little more like full or something, like not like an SLO, but maybe it sounds a little more like cascaded gain stage or something. I don't know. When I think of the Jose, it's just like more like pushed mids, kind of that sound that I don't know how to describe it, but if you know it, you know it. And then like a little more SLO or something, like would be maybe a way to describe it, but not. Still sounds like a Marshall, but that broader sound or something. I don't know. I'd have to back them. Yeah. What else we got here? Somebody says, I like Glenn's stuff. That's Glenn Fricker. Just try and take it for what it is. That's his shtick. Yeah, his shtick's kind of fun, actually. At least he's original. He is original. You know him right away, and he's not afraid to say what he thinks and stuff. And he's fun, I like the videos. Ben Tom's recommending PS Vane tubes for a reliable, kind of modern. I've had good luck with them too. I like them. Let's see. Todd Roy is suggesting guitar players put together guitar kits. I see. When you guys say guitar kit, you mean like a whole, like you order a kit off of Stu Mac and put it together. I think that's a good point, Todd. You're saying I would suggest that guitar players build a guitar kit because it gives one a nice crash course in how guitars are made and function and helps with learning the continuing care the guitars need. Yeah, I mean, I never ordered a whole kit and put it together, but I definitely took guitars apart and then put them back together, like my first Hondo. Oh, poor guitar ended up in pieces in a box in my friend's basement, which is sad because I can't believe I did that to it. But that I didn't take it more seriously. That I would have wanted my first guitar down the road a bit, But anyway, who knows where it ended up, in a dumpster somewhere. It's very sad, but that guitar I did learn on it, taking it apart and taking the neck off and taking the pickguard off and switching out pickups and screwing around. And for that same reason, I actually kind of would like to order an amp kit or do the Egnator amp course, where you go out there to Michigan and you actually build an amplifier with Bruce Egnator over a course of a few days, just so that I understand a few more things. Like I know you're not going to do that without learning. You're going to definitely pick up some stuff on like, oh, I see what this does and what this stage here does and what, So yeah, I think it's good to know that stuff about your gear. But it definitely comes in handy, certainly when you're on the road. Like it's really amazing actually how many techs are out there and stuff that are like guitar techs or people on the road that actually don't like they couldn't get inside an amp and bias it. They don't know how to do that. And to me, that's like, well, if we have a problem on the road, what are we going to do? You know, we got to find a repair shop, like just to bias or replace a, you know, like things like that are important to know how to do, I think. You know, or like let's say a pot gets broken on an amplifier, you know, sheared off or something. So you got to get a replacement one and put it back in and solder it. And like you need to know how to do that stuff. So on amps, it's true too. But same thing on guitars. I mean, if I have a problem on a guitar, I can generally like, you know, like the arm assembly on my that guitar, the this one that's on the light up stand. It's got the Floyd on it, the from Tone. Well, the arm was a little loose actually for a while, and then the arm popped off, like the assembly. So there's a set screw that's like, well, not a set screw, but like a, you know, whatever underneath that holds the whole assembly on. So I had to take the bridge off the guitar and get in there and like tighten that up and put it back together, like things like that. You gotta, you know, be confident enough to do that stuff because it was like 2 hours before a show that I had to, you know, put the guitar back together. So it's good to know how to do that stuff. Ian's recommending JJ6V6s for tubes. Where do 5751s fall in the mix, says Russell. A 5751 is a low gain 12AX7. Basically, it's the same, but it's like 80% of the gain, I think. So like famously, I think Stevie Ray Vaughan used to use 5751s in the first slot on his Fenders because it would give a little more headroom. So you could turn up the amp without it overdriving as much. More volume, less drive. Yeah. So it's the same reason why some people will go to a 12AT7 in the first stage of a Fender or something to provide. That's even more. That's like, I think 70% of the gain of a 12AX7. So 5751 is basically a cleaner 12AX7. Yeah. Let's see. Ben Coombe says he's trying to hit 6K subs by the end of the year. He's 90 away. Can you help a fellow out? Subscribe to Ben's channel. He's been here for years, my faithful moderator. Help him out. Throw him a bone. What else we got here? Have you ever played with Doug Rappaport? No, he's a burner though. He's ripping on guitar. But I know him a little bit. He's a killer guitar player. Which Friedman amp would you consider to be the closest to the B100 Deluxe? It's amazing, just too heavy and cumbersome. Well, honestly, dude, I would just probably go small box if you want a Friedman and you want something clean and dirty. You know, it's a similar. It's got a BE channel and it's got a Plexi channel, so that you can set up the Plexi channel to be really nice and clean. And it's kind of one of my favorite amps that he makes because of the simplicity, to be honest. So yeah, I would just look at the small box for a simple. You know, he makes a BE50 too, but I don't know that you need that much amp. You know, if you just want clean, dirty, go small box. Does the hot mod work in the Friedman Phil X? You'd have to ask the designer, the Legendary Tones guy. I'm gonna say probably, but you know, you want to make sure. So I don't know that. I mean, maybe it'd be cool. But yeah, I think any amp that's kind of the Marshall design preamp with the cathode follower, it's designed to replace that stage 2, you know, the second tube. And I think there's no reason why in a Phil X. I think Phil X probably uses a couple sides of the first 12AX7 for the, you know, input gain stages, and then the cathode follower is probably still V2. So it probably would work, I would think. But yeah, just clear it with the dude that you buy them from. I'm 90% sure. You could give it a try. What's the best pedal to make a Plexi just sound like you turned the volume up? Just adding gain to a Plexi, transparent. I mean, on a budget, the SD1 style, you know, is kind of a hard rock classic going into one of those one of the Boss OD1 or the SD or Super Overdrive, SD1. The Waza one in particular sounds really, really good. There's a guy named Wu Nan in China that makes, here it is right here. This is the pedal. He made this to boost plexis. This pedal sounds, I can't even remember what it's called, the SHOC or something like that. But it's CKK, this pedal. Go to the CKK site and look, CKK pedals. Sinvertech. He's got two companies. It gets a little, I don't really understand his different nomenclature and stuff like that. It's a little convoluted, but this pedal sounds great into a plexi. He's a plexi nut, so it makes sense. He's actually sending me another one that he swears is the best for boosting into a plexi. Here's a little pedal that I tried the other day that sounds really good. Somebody gave me this. This was when I was in Japan, I think, that somebody gave me this. And it's called the Z-Amp 1959 amplifier. So 1959, that's the model number of a Plexi 100 watt. I plugged this in. It's no tone control, just a gain and output. Sounds really good. It doesn't have a ton of gain, just a little bit of grind. But it kind of has like a Marshall on 5 or 6 sort of sound to it, like a Plexi on 5 or 6, that sort of level of grind. So maybe this, the Z-Amp, give this thing a try. Zasha Buti, Zashabuti. Very natural sounding. And I was like, it's interesting because there's no tone control, but I don't feel like I need one. It just sounded like drive, Plexi style drive, light Plexi style drive. So maybe that. Want something different? There you go. All right, super chats. Thanks for the super chat, Son of Pyro, to keep this channel going. While we're talking about it, hit the thumbs up if you're enjoying the show, please. We got 299 people online. It'd be great to get if you're enjoying it, because it helps to the old algorithm like we've been talking about today. You know how it is. And thanks for the super chat. It helps me keep the coffee going around here. Buying a first guitar amp for my nephew for Christmas. Thinking an Epiphone SG or Les Paul Tribute or Squire Affinity and some kind of 200-ish amp with effects and modeling. So I would go Boss of some sort for the amp, like the little baby Katana situations, or what's Boss offering in that price range these days? I mean, they always sound great. I've got a little Microcube from 10 or 12 years ago that sounds great. Like really, like what more could you possibly ask for? So I'm seeing here a Boss Katana. I'm looking at Reverb right now. 50 Mark II 112 $229. I think there's some for cheaper than that. $229. Here's one for $190. I would go that way. One of these little Boss Katana jobbies. If they're going to get into it and they're going to get the bug, they're going to be just fine playing on that for a couple of years until they want their Kemper. I said it. No, let's hope they get a tube amp after, but nothing wrong with the Kemper. Nothing wrong with the Kemper. They can go that route too. Just fine. It was a joke. Come on. Don't hate me, Kemper people. It's just a joke. As far as guitars go, yeah, Epi SG or Les Paul Tribute, I would say that's a great idea. The Squire Affinity stuff, also great if they want to go. There's so many good options these days. I pick up some of those Squires every now and then when I'm in stores just to see, like, what's this thing feel like? I'm like, man, this is so much of a better guitar than what we had when I was a kid in this price range. So I'm going to see here. Les Paul Tribute. I just want to see what you're talking about here for Les Paul 60s Tribute Plus. Here's a blue, a bunch of Epiphones here. I'm seeing ebony ones. Les Paul Tribute Ebony, $299. $299. It's crazy. It kind of looks like it's got a bolt-on neck, but I don't think so. But yeah, nothing wrong with these guitars. Absolutely. One of these, or I see the 60s Tribute Plus. Those are like $700 or $800, but just the Epiphone Les Paul Tribute electric guitar in ebony for $299 all day long on Reverb. you know, if you have a chance to play it and make sure it plays good and stuff, you know, and that it's, you know, not got issues or anything like that, I would do that. Because the setup is so important for kids. That's the main thing. If they're a new guitar player, you can almost get it. You know, any guitar that makes a decent, halfway decent sound and whatever, as long as the guitar's set up okay and it plays halfway decent, that is gonna what's, you know, if they're fighting the guitar, that's the, you know, because it's obviously it's hard. You gotta, you know, get your calluses and all that, and you know, so you want it to be relatively easy to play for sure. Yeah. Anyway, Freddie's gonna go change some laundry, he says, so that's pretty exciting. Thanks for that super chat there again, Son of Pyro. And yeah, just make sure the guitar's set up good, I would say. But yeah, you're good with Squire Affinities, one of those Les Pauls, little Boss Katana. You should be able to get everything for, you can, you know, you're well under $1,000 tax all in. Getting a great little starter set, even $600, I would say you can probably do it. What else? The SLO thing is like when you get an Epiphone, you wonder about a Gibson. Get a Gibson, you wonder about a custom shop. Then you wonder about a Murphy Lab, and then you wonder about a vintage Gibson. Yeah, that's all true. That's kind of how it works, you know? And then some people are just happy with what they have. That's the whole Tom Morello bag, you know, which I think is pretty cool. Get a guitar. This is my guitar. Get an amp, a few effects, figure out how they make the best sound, use that to write an entire catalog of music from Rage Against the Machine and Audioslave. Jason, Baron von Bielski Orchestra got a new release in January. That's cool. Yeah, I really liked the song that I heard. It was super kind of 70s sounding. Yeah, it was like had this 70s kind of rock, proggy sort of attitude to it that I really enjoyed from them. So it's good stuff. Thoughts on switching magnets in a super distortion? Been said that Eddie did that in the Destroyer on Van Halen 2. I think it's quite possible that it was a super distortion with an A2 magnet. When you think about it, if you took a ceramic out of a super distortion, you stuck an A2 in it, you now have a pickup that's pretty darn similar to the spec of something like a custom, which he used later, I think. You know, a Duncan Custom was sort of Duncan's answer, I think, to a super distortion because it's the same spec, right? It's like 13 point whatever K ceramic magnet, you know, that's a Duncan Custom. So, and then a super distortion is around the same spec. So, yeah, Eddie kind of, yeah, I think he used, that's why I always think that he used the regular super distortion or Mighty Might or whatever with an A2 on Van Halen 1 for stuff like You Really Got Me and stuff. I think that it's that sound, and you nailed on part of why I think that, because yes, he talked about a super distortion in the VH2 guitar and that he replaced the magnet with an A2. So, okay, we know he had those pickups and he kind of used them and stuff. And yeah, in the Shark, because there's still to this day, by the way, that pickup in the Shark, you know, it's got that, you know, double cream pickup in it. So maybe it was the hot magnet on Van Halen 1. That's my theory on why that sounds like that on You Really Got Me and stuff. That was the only album that he maybe used that pickup on. And then by VH2, he'd put maybe that A2 magnet in that pickup, and that changed the sound a lot, warmed it up and all that business. Because yeah, I really think the ceramic, like a super distortion, has this big, broad, heavily distorted, you know, it's like a big wallop into the amplifier, broad tone, you know. And put an A2 in there, it's a much different sound, more mids, softer highs, spongy lows. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Takes perseverance and tenacity. Tenacity. I always like that word. That was George Bush's favorite word. Junior. I'm tenacious. Ah. Okay. Okay. What else we got here? Have you ever played through a Friedman X amp? Is that the Phil X? What's your opinion of it? I haven't really, actually, to be honest. That's one that I haven't played that much. So I think it's a variation on a BE, just some variation. I want to hear Rush played on steel drums, said nobody ever. Well, look, I know I understand your slight trepidation about the whole thing, but go listen to it. It's pretty cool. We knocked it out of the park. First of all, the core band was killer. It's Portnoy, and myself and Philip, and I think we nailed the Rush arrangements, to be honest. And then they added the steel drums. So, what else we got here? Did Will Ferrell do a talk show with the cone on? I want to see it if he did. Oh man. My little cat's got a cone on for those joining late. He said the cone of shame for 10 days now. Debating taking it off soon. So I think we're going to leave it on. Maybe we'll go 12 days. Today's 10. Tomorrow, take it off the day after tomorrow. Let's see how that goes. Okay. I would love to have a birth year guitar. I'd like a birth year guitar, like a 71 Strat would be a nice 71 Strat. Sunburst, rosewood board. I'd be down with that. Big headstock Strat. I've always wanted one, like a 70 Strat is just cool. Richie Blackmore. Yeah. Okay. Ooh, no shit, Arthur. On 1992, I walked into a pawn shop, passed on a 60 Sunburst Les Paul for $4.99. Are you serious? Are you sure that that's what it was? Because even then, it would have been an expensive guitar. Would have been a $10,000 guitar at least in 92. Probably more like 20 or yeah. I mean, that would be a really weird. Are you sure that it was an actual 60? Like they were like $5-6 grand in the early 80s. So 10 years later, they were, because that's post Japan, after the Japanese bought all the guitars in the late 80s and they all went over there and everything way up in price. Favorite Van Halen album tone wise? I've got my different things that I like about each record, but I think overall, I really love two. I love one for what it is, and I love Fair Warning. And even yesterday, I had this realization in the car, Van Halen realization in the car, that maybe the best representation of what a plexi does in a track could be Hot for Teacher. And why do I say that? Because it goes meow when he plays and then it's got that thing because of the linear gain throughout the amplifier, that when he hits each one of those A chords, you really hear it do that growl. And if you play with a gain amp, it just goes it doesn't go where you hear the sag and the recovery and all that. And then what really is the icing on the cake for that particular track is, of course, he switches to the neck pickup with the volume all the way down for the clean verses. That's a plexi. There it is. That's what they do, and that vowel sound when he hits those A chords is so special and cool. And with any more gain, if you Jose modded that amp, it wouldn't clean up like that on the clean part, and it wouldn't do that vowel thing on the. So I was like, and it was just on the radio, and when you listen to things and you hear things that you've never heard before, something you've heard a million times, and then it comes on, and you're in a certain headspace. Maybe it's kind of quiet, because sometimes I find when I listen to things quiet, I can hear details better. The little details. And so it was on in the car, and it wasn't super loud. It was low. And I was just realizing how much vowel there was on each of those A chords, in that part of the tune, and then the clean, the cleanup, because he rarely played a guitar, at least in those early days when he was using plexis, he rarely played a guitar with the Marshall that was a 2 pickup guitar. Later on, he used one all the time, right? The Music Man and the PV and stuff. but by then he was using gainier amplifier, so it was a different thing. So just kind of neat, like the whole range is in there on that song for one to hear. Yeah. So anyway, there's a special thing about 84 too, but I would say overall I love the sound of Van Halen too, because it's just kind of a very natural plexi, killer tone, and just it's the sound of his fingers in that amp and a cabinet, and there's a rawness to it that's like not a lot of studio trickery or anything. Not that there's a ton of studio trickery, but there's like more reverb on one. It's a little clearer on two. Then we get to Women and Children first, and I think that album's a little actually like the cool tones and stuff, and it's cool, but it's not as cool as 1 or 2. Then we get to Fair Warning, and it's really cool. Darker, warmer. Friedman and I think he was using a JB on that. Hotter pickup. Okay. Let's see. Texas Blues Alley says, I know a few vintage guitar guys. They don't play them. Yeah, I mean, I know some people that play them that actually use them and stuff, but they're generally like beat up guitars or modded, that kind of thing. Mine are not perfect, my vintage guitars. So yeah, I know what you mean. Like, I guess Bonamassa is maybe one of the only ones that's out there, playing vintage stuff that's maybe primo and taking it on the road and not afraid to play it, So yeah, this is pretty cool. Irish says the only thing he has that's kind of vintage is first and only Marshall 1980 2203 GMP. Yeah, that's totally a vintage amp at this point, and a cool piece. Great amp. Yep. Speaking of Rhett Shull's guitar, he can do what he wants with it. I agree. He should switch those pickups. Oh, that's true. Sorry. No disrespect to the Destroyer, but yeah, I do have a vintage Destroyer as well. There it is back there. You can see it right back there. And yeah, it's a 76 Ibanez Destroyer that I love. Love that guitar. Freddie B says, what a busy weekend. Did I miss the answer to my question? Sorry, I don't, I think I answered your question a while ago, but I'm not 100% sure. Ian says he's compelled to modify every guitar he buys. Yeah, I feel that way. I mean, except for my Surs, because they always like, they already modded from the factory with all the right stuff. So, but even those, I tend to change things on sometimes. So swap things around, try different things. Yeah. What are some of my favorite JCM 800 style amps? Well, to be honest, a PT100 is not dissimilar to a JCM 800. It's just tweaked, The circuit is similar to that 2203, 2204 style Marshall circuit, just with components like changed and things like that. And it's like a variation on that theme, a little bit more than it is Plexi, actually. So I can say that, PT100. But if you're talking specifically a little bit more like an 800, the Jakey Lee does that kind of too. That circuit is that kind of, that's sort of where it's coming from too, with just tweaked stages. So there's two. There's a 76 Destroyer on the net right now for like 10K. It started at 12. Yeah, people are a little unrealistic about the prices, I think. Once again, that's what I'm talking about. I mean, I bought mine during the pandemic for, well, I won't tell you what I got it for, but it wasn't that. It was a pretty good deal. So anyways, yeah. Dave Stevens makes awesome PF pickups with a long waiting list. I haven't heard of him. That's interesting. Always somebody out there doing their thing, and there's always somebody new. I mean, not that he's new, but I just haven't heard his pickups. Haven't heard of them. Maybe he's been doing it for a while. Yeah. How do you change? I'm trying to understand the question, but how do you know how long to cut the damn things? Oh, I see what you mean. Past the post of the tuner. Occasionally with you guys, I got to figure out what you're talking about. So Come here, guitar. Oh, it's doing that telly thing where it's stuck in this thing. Okay, here's my old telly. You want to go, here's the high E. So if on, especially on the high strings, you want a little more wind on a Fender than I do on some others. But I just about that long past the tuner, 1.5 inches, maybe, maybe 2 inches. If you want 4 winds around the post, let's say. If you want just a couple winds, go that long, maybe like, 1 inch or something beyond. But I don't know. I just know how long to, I guess, here's the low tuner. I'll pull the string to about there, past the low tuner. So measure to the next post and a half, and you'll be good, in general. Post and a half, let's say. Stay there. Guitar. It's about 1:30. I'm going to hang for another 20 or so, and then I'm going to go and do some other work. I'm going to finish a video for this little Blackstar combo that I'm making a video for right now, and I'm going to learn some songs for tour. If you could only listen to one Van Halen album, not a greatest hits, what album would it be and why? Oh, God, you can make me do that? It's probably 84, to be honest. That's a weird thing maybe for some people, but just because that was kind of if I had to pick only one, it's like that was kind of the era. I saw them on that tour. It was like when I was really getting into guitar heavily, seriously. And I just have this great memory of all those tunes, like, kind of the deep cuts like Girl Gone Bad and the last song, House of Pain. I just have fond memories of those tunes, and the album conjures up a feeling of me being that age, when you're like that 14 or whatever I was, something like that. And 13, 14, 15, and listening to, in my first car and all that stuff. So there's more sentimental stuff than just, I guess that's a good answer. You're saying what album would it be and why? That's why, because it's like kind of like it's a part of my youth that, I didn't hear Van Halen 1 until I'd already heard 84, because 1982, 83, I was starting to play guitar. I didn't really know much about Van Halen. I knew a little bit. But when 84 came out, it was late 83 when it was released, I think. And it really connected, It's like I wasn't really listening to like Diver Down and stuff in 1982. I was listening to Ozzy and The Who and the Beatles and some other stuff then. I didn't really get exposed to Van Halen, and I would say prominently until like 84. And then that album really clicked with me for whatever reason. It's like Rush. The first album that I really knew was probably Grace Under Pressure, which came out the same year, right around the same time. And then I went backwards and was more aware of Signals and then Moving Pictures and stuff. I had to go back, and yeah. Yeah. Braxall says I want to make an Ibanez Roadstar into a Super Strat. That's fun. And my grandfather had Bondo in the cavity where the pickguard goes. Anyways, it was a fail-made guitar, heavy, etc. It wound up in the trash. Oh, some of those guitars are so cool. Have you seen that pink one that Paul Gilbert has? You see it on his Instagram quite a bit. He's got this pink Roadstar that was like, let me find a picture of it because it's like so cool looking, that guitar. I like those guitars. That's another like right around that era, the Ibanez and the, it just, I connected with the instruments of the time or whatever. And there it is with this cat, this video of look at that thing. Isn't that cool? Like pink one humbucker. Look at these cats. Pretty cool video. Yeah, I love that guitar. And then the Steve Lukather model that was out around the same time. I don't know if Steve ever actually used it on anything, but it was cool looking anyways. Blue burst and looked like one of those. And I've got just fond memories of that era. And those guitars have nice necks. Like it's pre-shredder Ibanez neck. It's a little more, it feels like a Kramer of the era or something. A little more stratty. A little more vintage feeling and stuff. Kind of cool. Kind of cool. So yeah. Freddie's asking about the strings on a Fender with a slotted post. You know, in my mind, I mean, I can offer you a little bit of. Let me just get my old Strat here because I've actually thought quite a bit about this. This guitar actually stays in tune quite well for being an old guitar. So this is my 64, and I don't have a string tree on it. You'll notice this is one of the ones with the logo was in a weird place because it was like late 64 and Leo wasn't around and they were experimenting doing silly stuff. So what you'll notice if you could see the posts, but you'll notice that I have 2 winds around the low strings, 3 around the D, 4 around the G, 4 and 4. It's like I go a little more on the plain strings because it allows me to not have a tree. So the lower you wind, of course, it'll pull this, just microscopically, it'll pull the string down a little bit more. So I don't use a lot of winds on the low strings. That helps keep a little less down pressure on the nut as far as tuning stability goes here, because you don't want to go down 2, 3, 4 winds and pull it down and use a tremolo. You're going to go sharp on the strings when you use the trem. On the G string, 4 winds because no string tree. And your mileage may vary. You might try 3. You might try and see what works. But I find I don't need a string tree on this guitar at all with enough winds around the second string and the first string. It's got enough downward pressure. They don't pop out of the nut, generally speaking. I mean, maybe if you're Stevie Ray Vaughan, you're really like killing it. It would, but I don't really do that. So it's like, it works fine for me. And then I can keep the guitar in tune better with no string tree there, because every single friction point, there's a couple different factors, right? There's the amount of friction on the nut, and then there's the amount of friction points. So string tree, friction here, there's all that. And then there's also the way that the string breaks over the saddle and lifts off the saddle if you're using the bar, using the tremolo. So for whatever reason, I have this guitar set up super Jeff Becky with the bridge quite far forward, like it's, and it feels really great with the bar kind of angled the way that it is and that bridge sitting forward, and I can put the bar right in my hand. It's very, very comfortable the way the bar is angled on this guitar for me. And I don't know, it just stays in tune really good, this guitar. So there's just some thoughts there, but mainly on the, you got to just learn through trial and error, how much to leave beyond the post in order to get the amount of winds you want around each, post on a vintage Fender. That's it. That's that. Stay there. Don't go away. So we got about 320 people online. You guys always come in late. Maybe I should start the show later. Maybe I should start at like, I don't know, 12:30 or something, because everybody shows up at the end, I find. Maybe that's just because people like get the notification late or something, and then more show up later. I don't know. Somebody's asking about the Vega Trem. I just haven't tried it. I have one here. I was mentioning it. I just haven't had they gave me one to check out, but that means installing it on a guitar, which is like a bit of it's not that big of a deal, but I know I should probably do it because it's been a while. It's been a couple of years since I've had it, so I should probably try it. Everybody that tries them seems to really like them. They say they're good, All that said, I'm very, very, very happy with the new Sur Bridge. The new Sur Bridge is outstanding. That is on there. It's the bridge that looks almost exactly like a Godot, but it's not a Godot. Looks like a vintage Strat 2-post bridge, but it's fan-friggin-tastic, that bridge. So, it stays in tune so good. So, and it's not just a copy of, there's a few things going on with it that make it unique. So, I'm going to move way, way, way down in the chat here to grab, because I think I might have missed a super chat a little while ago. And maybe I'm just not going fast enough here. And then I'm gonna split in about. Well, I'll hang, since we got 322 people here. I'll hang another 20 for sure. How does the JEL compare to the small box? I think the JEL doesn't have the JEL 20. It's like got a JCM 800 style channel and then a modded. You got to ask Dave exactly like how they're the same. But the small box is, first of all, small box is a plexi channel, gain master, shared EQ, and then a BE channel, right? Yeah. But the I think the circuits are different. Like I think you kind of get it's more JCM 800. I think maybe it's just on the gain mode on the GL20. So you get, let me just look here. So you got, oh, and you got a SAT switch as well, which you won't have on a small box. Okay, yeah. So there's the pull gain boost. So you get a clean channel, and then you get a JCM 800 style channel, but with a mod pull gain boost on the JEL20. So it's a little more JCM 800, and then adding gain to JCM 800, I think, in the architecture. The small box is a plexi channel and a BE channel, which is different than the gain boosty thing in the JEL. Hope that spells it out. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Okay, moving down to, I'm going to grab these super chats. Guitars for your project. Thank you for the super chat. How does your FU tone compare to the Goto Floyd and an original Floyd? Thinking of purchasing your new signature. So it's got a great big brass block, number one. So the block is like double size over either the Goto or original Floyd. Great big hefty brass block, and it's got titanium inserts and all the screws. And the titanium just feel very like I don't know, deluxe. Like, you know, when you're tightening things and stuff, there's no play, and it just feels like, I don't know, really like, well, like the screws and the machining and stuff, just really nice. So, and the titanium is on the nut as well. So the screws for the lock nut, inserts on the bridge, screws at the back of the bridge, all that stuff is all titanium. So the main difference is the block and those titanium screws. And there's a depth to the tone that I hear with the block. I don't know how to describe it, but when you play every one of my, because I've played about 4 now, the ones that have had the FU tone bridges on them, and it's got this deep solidity to the tone. I don't know, with that particular bridge, that's kind of unique, and I think that's the block. Yeah, and that's my theory. Ray's making somebody was asking about an inexpensive amp for a young player. They're saying you could use PV Classic 20 or 30 for 250 to 300, beats a Boss any day. Yeah, but the Boss does give you the variety and effects, which not every player needs, but you know, it's nice to have a little reverb and delay and maybe a little, you know what I mean? And a Katana is a pretty damn good sounding little amp, dude. Like I've got a Classic 30. Wasn't ever my favorite amplifier. 20, killer. The Classic 20 was a different little thing. It was just the one channel, and it had a great gain sound, like really, really cool. The 30 always sounded kind of like mid-rangey to me and weird. Just wasn't this. I never enjoyed it as much as I did the 20. But it's a one thing too. That's the only thing. With one of those, you get one. It's a one tone kind of amp. So yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Moving down. I'm moving way down through the chat quickly here. Because, oh, wow. Yeah, the chat's really long, and I've been way back in it. Sorry about that. Arthur says he was late to the Van Halen stuff until Balance. Picked up 84 when it was released, but didn't hit me. Definitely not like Balance. That's interesting. I didn't really listen to Balance actually when it came out. I was in a different mode in the mid 90s, completely different mode. I wasn't really listening to, believe it or not, like a hell of a lot of rock music. I was in a super singer songwriter kind of pop and acoustic, and like I was really like into listening to Neil Young and Joni Mitchell and stuff in the 90s. I'd kind of tuned out a little bit just because the 80s thing died so hard, and I was in LA, and I was like, oh. And then I felt that like, what's going on? And then I need to kind of figure out what's happening. I don't know. It was weird. And then I even kind of had to get introduced back into coming around to like when Soundgarden and Alice in Chains came out. And I remember and became popular. I was like slow to get back into rock, to be honest. That was just where I was at that time. So yeah, it was partially because of the work I was doing. I was playing a lot of like acoustic guitar gigs, writing on acoustic guitar, and working with like this female singer-songwriter that I had a duo with. The band I was with at the time was kind of this psychedelic pop thing. I don't know. And solos were not, I didn't play a guitar solo, like a proper guitar solo again until I felt like the early 2000s, mid 2000s. Just wasn't happening. Around 2004, 2005, I started getting interested again and then it was really, what solidified it for me was actually Steve Stevens' album that he put out in 2007 or 8, which was called Memory Crash. That was kind of a rock, instrumental, fun, Marshalls, dirty solos, but melodic. And I thought, oh, this is cool. This is like really like, you know what I mean? Like it just had that a different. It was like you can play solos. Oh, and it's cool. Maybe we're past all that. It took me for a while, like the '90s hangover, to get out of that mode of like you got to keep in mind every producer or whatever was like, don't play a solo or just play the vocal melody, or it sounds too 80s. It sounds too, like you just couldn't. So we didn't for a long time. It was silly, but that was how hard the backlash was against the shred got lumped in with hair metal. So at least that's my memory of it. Yeah. Let's see. Could you show your gold Van Halen guitar with the super distortion? It's way in the other. It's hard to get to right now. But it's basically a Strat gold black. I don't want to. It'll take me a minute to get there, and we're almost going to wind up here in 10 or 15. So I don't want to grab it. I'm sorry, but yeah. I really want to see you play the solo in You're No Good. You're not gonna be able to hear it very well. And I don't even pick on the desk here. Here, just a sec. I don't know if I have echo cancellation on, if you'll hear this, but so it goes. All right. You got to do the, That's the next lick. No. Okay. No, I don't remember that lick. Let me see. That's it. So next lick. I love that lick. So and then he goes. Right. The tapping lick is so incredible. I'd forgotten it for a minute, but so I don't know if you can hear it or not. I hope you can, but he does this little flick with his finger on the right where he's actually moving his finger. And I love how he bends up to the major third there. It's so cool. And then it's such a great solo. Ted Templeman talks about that solo in his book. And he said it was one of the coolest things he thinks he ever recorded. Like, he says he just busted it out in a take, and it was like, he said it sounded like, spiders scampering when he did the harmonic thing. They said it sounded like that to him. And it was just, what is happening? That's so cool, and that kind of just genius. But it is an amazing solo. Yeah. Dear sir, you have unlocked the check out my very vintage Strat reward. Bent Tom, thanks so much for the super chat. I appreciate it. Okay. All right. Freddie says, you're awesome. Thank you for taking the time to explain that. Very appreciated. Ain't sure about taking the tree off. I'll give it a go. There's nothing, you can remove the tree and see if it works. On some guitars, it just might not for whatever reason, but you're not doing any permanent damage by taking that tree off and just putting it away somewhere safe so you don't lose it like I probably did mine. I think mine's in the case, but anyways. Yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Reading. I'm gonna head down. Oh, there's a super chat. Gotta catch that one. Trying to get Lich Talarm Audio. I don't know how to say that. To send LCFR Fane 12s to Cali. You know how cabinet size affects the tone. More or less cubic feet per cabinet. Insulation to 812s is the goal for Visional. Wow, that's some wild stuff you got going there too. 812s. That's going to be full Pete Townsend, circa 1966. Yeah, it's probably going to develop a lot of bass. I mean, if you're using 812s, it's probably. I mean, the whole secret to it, you got to be careful because the whole secret to kind of an SVT cabinet is like those 810s in a, all working in tandem. Although I hear an SVT is divided actually inside. It's almost like 410s, but maybe that's part of it too. So there's not too much bass. I don't know. But anyways, with a 412, part of it is the cabinet developing bass. And I would think with 8, like I don't know, it might or might not work. Maybe it'll be the most amazing thing ever, but I don't know the scientific. I only know that, generally speaking, the depth of a cabinet, like when you increase the size of a cabinet, it just sounds bassier. I've learned that, generally speaking. And depth, certainly, like if you try, for instance, like a vintage Marshall 212 from the 70s, it's kind of not that deep, right? If you take one and you have the same cabinet, same dimension, but you make it deeper by like a couple inches, it'll sound bassier. It'll sound fuller and bigger. Bogner oversized 212, right? That was the whole point, like almost to sound like a 412, but in a 212, but it's 3/4 the size. Yeah. So, and then insulation, just kind of like that batting stuff that you can put on the inside. That's a Bogner too. They used to use a lot of that batty stuff. Think of kind of like dry sounding, tighter, but not really vintage. It's like there's a fine line, like with cabinets, like brace, like if you want it to sound vintage, if you want it to sound really dry, really tight, maybe from metal, think Mesa or Bogner 412s, dry, tight, full bass, quick, but there's no slop going on. Whereas a vintage 412, like a Marshall, they're braced, but they're not that braced, and they don't have any of that batting stuff in them and stuff, and they can sound a little more lively, a little less like dampened. You go to the batting, the insulation dampens everything on the inside, so it just sounds a little more. Does that make sense? Lively versus tighter and a little not stiff, but I think you know what I'm saying. Depends what you're doing. If you're playing metal or something, I wouldn't be afraid of it. The batting and the tightness and the overbraced and the whole 9 yards. But if you want it to be like Hendrix or something, or a little more vintage, I tend to just like old Marshall cabs. I don't know, they sound good to me. So, were you into Jeff Buckley when he was alive? I was into Jeff Buckley right after he died. Like, to be honest, so the early 2000s, I got kind of more into him. And I started listening to Grace in a particular time in my life where it was like I couldn't not listen to that record every day. I I was so blown away by that record. It was so great. And then later on, I guess when I think about it, it's like not long after that, I started playing with Chris Cornell. And I realized that Chris had been really good friends with him. So that was interesting to me because I thought, what a shame that I got into this. What a shame, first of all, that he died the way he did. And so, because he was so genius, it would be a wonderful world if Jeff Buckley was in it right now, right? More so. But uh, he's a freaking genius, that guy, you know? And then, like, you watch that Metro live, you know, him live at the Metro in Chicago. It's so good. If you guys aren't hip to check it out, it's like just transcendent young guys playing real music with no BS, you know, and so good and talented, you know. And I loved it, that Metro show. Good stuff. See, that's kind of what I was like talking about. Although I wasn't listening to that in the 90s because I just missed the boat somehow, you know. I didn't start listening to it till a few years later. Once I got into it, I was like, oh my God, this is like the best record ever. And around 2004 or 5 that I was listening to that record a lot, like daily. And then I started playing with Chris 2007. And Chris used to tell this great story during his songbook tour. And he had this phone on stage with him that was on a pedestal, I think. And he would say, you know, this used to be Jeff Buckley's phone. And, you know, his mother, I used to talk to him on the phone, I guess, you know, he said, and we'd have long phone conversations. And he said, after he passed away, his mom gave me this phone. You know, and he'd say, you know, sometimes I wonder if I can pick up the phone and he'll be on the other end. And then he'd play, you know, whatever song he'd play after that. But anyways, it was incredible. It was so melancholy. Anyways, Buckley, yeah. What a loss, you know. Okay, let's see. When are you next UK bound? I almost got a little tinge of anxiety, but it's a little over a month, and that's it. So I'll be over there pretty soon. Probably leaving around the 6th or 7th of January, something 6th of January maybe, to come over. So I got a lot of work to do before then. That's why I got anxiety. I got a lot to do here. I got work to do for that, and just other things. I got a lot of loose ends, and not loose ends, but things to clean up and the work to get done in the next month. So yeah. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Todd Roy, Jeff Buckley was pretty big in Seattle. My buddy Zio was in the Mayfield 4 with Miles Kennedy back when they were way fired up about Jeff Buckley. Zio was in my band. So I auditioned for the Mayfield 4. Isn't that funny? Like, that was when I first met Miles. Nice guy. I was definitely in the running to do the Mayfield 4. This is Miles Kennedy's band. Well before he was, you know, with Slash and everything. And he was amazing, man. I remember playing with them, and it was like, God, this guy's got a set of pipes. I would love to do this. I remember the guy that set up the audition calling me and saying they're gonna give it to this other guy because he has agreed to do it for like really, really low money. And he says that he's cool with, you know, sleeping on a couch in Seattle. Basically, they didn't have any money to pay anybody. And I was already like touring as a sideman and stuff around then and making decent living, you know. And so they were like, they're going to go with this other guy because they know that he'll do it for really cheap, basically, I think. But that other guy, I think, ended up being Alessandro Cortini, who has been in Nine Inch Nails now since about 2005. So not long, a couple of years after the Mayfield 4 gig, he ended up in Nails, and he's a fantastic musician. He plays guitar and keys and stuff. I think I've got that story right. I think it was Alessandro that ended up doing the gig with Mayfield 4 for a bit. And then so maybe you know this, Chris, maybe you know if that was Alessandro ended up touring with them or not. But anyways, I did the audition in LA as well. So small world stuff, but I think I've got the story right. I hope so. If not, correct me, because that's the way that I thought it went. And I've told the story before. So, yeah. Okay. What else we got here? Let's see. Got to get going soon, guys. But got a couple super chats I got to grab. This is to help support your cat, not named Oscar. Thanks, Arthur. We'll just call him Oscar. From, you know how cats always get nicknames and stuff. He can be Oscar too. So his name's Mochi, but he can be Chichi. He can be Mochich. I call him Chi a lot, or Chi. But now he can be Oscar Chi. It's just fine. I like it. Yep. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna make sure I miss no super chats. No, I don't think I did. I didn't miss any. Will Burn still be on the set list? So Burn by Deep Purple. I can't tell. I can't offer up any kind of set list stuff, because that just takes away the surprise. It's a fun set list this year, though. This is CRS in January going over to play a run of shows in the UK again, and we're doing a bunch of fun stuff. Bringing back some stuff from the past, but also playing some brand new stuff and taking some things out of the set that have been there forever and mixing it up with new stuff. So hopefully people like it. I'm excited about it, but I do have a lot of practice to do. So Stiffmeister, oh yeah, says 30 by 30 by 14, no insulation, 4 drivers per section. We'll experiment with 2 drivers per section. I think you're good. So in other words, you're gonna make an 812, but it's gonna be like 2 412s almost, right? That's probably a pretty good way to go, I would say, to split it into. It probably won't sound too different than 2 412s then, and not be too surprisingly bass heavy or something. So yeah. Yeah. All right. What else before I go? Was recently lucky enough to find an 82 Marshall cab with original quad of black backs for a stupidly low price. That's awesome. That's really cool. There's still deals out there to be had. Tommy says, thanks. See ya. There's Todd. He's jetting too. All right. Well, you can bet Bloody Meatloaf's still on the set list. In the classic rock show, we do Bat Out of Hell. And there's a certain contingent that comes to see the classic rock show that loves that tune for some reason. I don't mind playing it, actually. It's become fun to play. It's fun to play. I don't know about to listen to, but it's certainly fun to play. It's a little journey, but I do enjoy playing it. If you could only have one rig for live, would you also want that to be one rig for the studio? So what is it? I mean, yeah, to be honest, like my signature guitar, my HSS, probably the regular one, the standard one with a PT100, I can do so much with that, so, and some simple pedals. So that's why I designed them that way. We were designed to do just about everything. It's why I use the amp with classic rock show. It's just super versatile and stuff, and covers a lot of ground. So I could definitely do a whole career with that stuff. All right, I should go, you guys. Let's see here. Fareed says, have a good week, everyone, and I concur. Everybody have a terrific week. This week, you're going to see a video for that little Blackstar 112 combo. That's coming. I got a video for a pedal that's coming out on the 5th. What is it today? The 1st. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's Friday? No, Thursday. Thursday, a new pedal coming out. So a couple videos this week for sure. We didn't see Peter here this week. He generally asks me what videos I'm doing every week, but it's going to be the little Blackstar combo and that pedal this week for sure. And then I got a bunch of other stuff that's coming soon, pedals and all kinds of stuff. Software. Oh my God, it never ends, but it's good. I'm not complaining. All right, everybody, have a great week. Be nice to one another. Thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all. Take care.